This content is AI generated for informational purposes only and should not be directly used for clinical decision-making.
Hello and welcome back to the Neurosurgery Hub podcast. I'm Dr. Aris, Senior Attending Neurosurgeon.
And I'm Dr. Alara. Today, we're looking at a fascinating new study from the 2026 edition of World Neurosurgery. The paper is titled Endoscopic, Transorbital and Retrosigmoid Approaches to the Pre-meatal and Ambient Area, an Anatomical and Quantitative Comparative Study with Surgical Applications.
This is a timely piece of research, Alara. As we move further into the era of minimally invasive skull-base surgery, we are constantly looking for the best corridors to these no-man's-land areas. Specifically, this study focuses on the pre-meatal area, or PMA, and the ambient cistern.
Exactly. For our listeners who might be visualizing this right now, the PMA and the ambient area are notoriously difficult to access. The researchers here wanted to perform a quantitative comparison between the endoscopic transorbital approach, the TOA, and the traditional retrosigmoid approach, the RSA.
Right. And the primary question they are asking is one we face in the OR all the time. Are these two approaches complementary, or are they competitive? Do they overlap, or does one offer a distinct advantage over the other when accessing these specific deep-seated regions?
To answer that, the study didn't just look at visibility. It focused on surgical exposure and maneuverability. They quantified the surface area exposed and the surgical volume available for instruments.
Let's dive into the pre-meatal area first. Traditionally, the RSA is our workhorse for the cerebellopontine angle. But when we talk about the PMA, that area anterior to the internal acoustic meatus, the RSA requires a fair amount of cerebellar retraction or a petrous bone drilling to get a clear line of sight.
That's where the TOA comes in. The paper highlights that the transorbital corridor provides a direct anterior to posterior route. In their quantitative analysis, they found that the TOA offers a unique vantage point for the PMA. Because the endoscope is coming through the superior orbital fissure, it lands right on the ventral and lateral aspects of the brainstem without the need for significant brain retraction.
But it's not just about getting there. It's about what you can do once you're there. The study mentions maneuverability. Did they find the TOA limiting in terms of instrument movement compared to the RSA?
That's the interesting part. While the TOA is a narrower corridor, for the pre-meatal area specifically, the angles of attack were often more direct. However, the RSA still provides a wider surgical volume for more traditional microneurosurgical techniques. The study suggests that for the PMA, these approaches might actually be competitive, depending on whether the lesion is more lateral or more medial.
Now, let's talk about the second part of the study, the ambient cistern. This is a complex jump. The paper specifies that they looked at this area after tentorial incision.
Correct. This is a crucial detail for the residents listening. To reach the ambient area from either of these lower starting points, you have to address the tentorium. The study found that once the tentorial incision is made, the TOA provides a surprising amount of exposure to the ambient cistern.
It's a bottom-up view, essentially. From the transorbital perspective, once you incise the tentorium, you're looking right at the ambient area from a ventrolateral perspective. In contrast, the RSA, even with a suprameatal extension, is looking at the same area from a posterior lateral perspective.
And this is where the authors lean into the complementarity aspect. They found that the surgical corridors of the TOA and RSA for the ambient area covered different blind spots. The TOA is excellent for the anterior part of the ambient cistern, while the RSA remains superior for the posterior portions.
So instead of choosing one over the other, a surgeon might actually use both in a combined approach for a large lesion extending across these zones.
Exactly. The quantitative data showed that the surgical exposure area didn't completely overlap. There was a distinct zone of the ambient cistern that was better served by the TOA's trajectory.
This study really underscores the shift toward tailored skull-base surgery. We aren't just using the approach we're most comfortable with, we're using the one that offers the best quantitative maneuverability for the specific anatomy of the lesion.
To wrap up the findings, the paper concludes that while the RSA remains the gold standard for versatility in the posterior fossa, the endoscopic TOA is a powerful, complementary tool that provides superior access to the ventral PMA and the anterior ambient cistern through a tentorial window.
It's a fascinating look at the future of the field. Quantitative studies like this take the guesswork out of surgical planning.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the pre-meatal and ambient areas.
Thanks for joining us on the Neurosurgery Hub podcast. We'll see you next time.